Alphion Elvia Hex. This is the spot we're going to be going over today. You guys ready for it? What up, what up? I am
Crimson.
and today we're going to be going over the spot. Like I said earlier, there is quite a bit to go over, so let's start first with gear requirements. The minimum, the bare minimum that you'd like to try to come here and possibly use a full elixir rotation is going to be 289 AP with 381 DP. Now this is just strictly if you want to try the spot, see how it's like, but I highly recommend that you actually come here at 301 AP and 391 DP. You need that damage and you need that survivability because the AP caps are hella high here and they hit like a truck. First, we're going to go over your elixirs, buffs, and things. We're going to use two separate methods here, one for if you're a beginner to intermediate and the next for intermediate to advanced. I'm going to do something a little different this time around where I'm including your buffs, your artifacts, and your lightstones all in one section. Then after that, it will be up to you to decide to mesh what you will in between as you get more gear. First, what both levels would need regardless. Your choice between a simple cron meal or an exquisite cron meal. I'll explain why you can actually choose between the two later on when we get into differences. Then buff, always standard, your church AP and DP. Accuracy furniture is not really needed here, so you can actually just go straight with AP furniture. They do have some amount of evasion, but it's not too bad, and you should be fine perfectly if you have the required gear. When you're at this point in the game, you should have at least your Windkrog Dalo set. Use that here as well. It's free. It's a free buff literally after you make it. Hella returns on that over time. Of course, your choice between Vel and Perla Star for survivability depending on your AP bracket. A full elixir rotation here is also hella wise even if you're advanced at the spot. Now the differences between beginner and advanced. For beginner, definitely start out with a simple cron meal while using your defensive artifacts. This means using Rigid Wall, also known as 4-set Iron Walls, or Blur for evasion because we don't really need the resist here. Include your artifacts to be DR evasion for your specific lightstones. If you want to be a little bit more offensive, go with monster damage artifacts and then going with the wild set for your lightstones. You can do 4 predation, but the 3 predation and iridescent is slightly more damage. Now for the advanced, we're going hella damage. With a crown meal all the way, no question. And then we're going to be using AP monster for your artifacts. Following that up with death blow if your class cannot maintain 100% crit rate. And you may think I was going to say vicious shadows, but that's actually not the case. At Hex, target openings is actually going to be your better option because the monsters are very aggro here. You won't really be getting as many back attacks, so the 6% extra damage on that isn't nearly as effective. You'll definitely notice more consistent damage with target opening. And also don't forget your perfumes that you can use with both your calcs and your courage. Now for a quick rundown of your crystals. Getting CC'd isn't too much of an issue here, so you can go straight damage. Make sure you go 2 Elcar for accuracy and also 2 Jinn or Bon Vipers. 2 Red Fangs are also really nice here, so that way you won't have to run shock in your elixir rotation. Followed by 4 damaging crystals of ancient magical power, or you could also run 2 rebellious, though that is a little bit more of a cost risk. If you have a Garmoth in your awakening, also run 2 glorious hawk rods. Now we're going to break down the rotations. When you first come to Hex, it can seem a little confusing, so I made an overview of the area. This should help to standardize Hex Sanctuary. You'll notice that there are 12 main rotations represented by the red portals at each. At each rotation, you will also see little red dots. These represent the Reaper locations at each rotation. Depending on where you are, there are 2 to 3 Reapers per. We will be dividing all of them into categories of beginner, intermediate, and advanced. First, for beginners, use the rotations 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 12. All of these only have 2 Reaper spawns that are the easiest to get into at lower gear. 1, 5, and 12 are the most isolated, so make sure to use those first. 6 through 11 can all be considered an intermediate level grind rotation. They all have 3 Reapers with the exception of rotation 8, but there's quite a bit of density there, which makes it really good. Now for the advanced, where we're getting hella fun with this area. Now we're going to start combining multiple rotations to make bigger ones. 6 and 7. 8 and 9, 10 and 11 are all good pairs. Also for an entry level into advanced, you can do rotations 2 and 3 or 3 and 4. This will give you anywhere from 4 to 6 Reapers to grind. And as you can see with the rotations, I've also labeled them from most profitable to least. This is from quite a few hours of testing, mainly coming down to the amount of density at the rotations and the distances between each. Solid. Now with that out of the way and the base understanding of the area, we can get into the mechanics. The main idea is to kill the surrounding mobs near the Reaper in order to feed its souls. You can't hit the Reaper initially, but upon getting enough souls, it'll actually spawn so you can. Killing the Reaper will spawn a portal event. Portal will summon a crap ton of mobs, explodey guys, and a whole bunch of little... well, they're gonna surround the shit out of you. So how do we make this efficient for each level of grinder? Well, I'm about to tell you. Go up to your first Reaper in the rotation and destroy all the mobs around it. The mobs do aggro quite nicely, so it would be good to position yourself where you're almost in the middle of most of them. This way you'll get a constant funnel of mobs with permanent aggro. Once you have murdered all of them, one of two things will happen. Either there are enough souls in the ground and they have been fed and your Reaper will spawn, or he will not. When the Reaper spawns, you'll know you'll get a big ol' red circle in the ground with some red letters saying, hey, he's hungry for you. Regardless if he spawns or not, move along to the next Reaper. Repeat this process no matter what gear level or rotation you are in. Now that you have all the Reapers spawned or nearly ready to spawn through one rotation, you will realize that all the other mobs have spawned back as well. You notice by the time you make around the rotation that there isn't any mobs there. Hey, it might be time to upgrade to intermediate or advanced rotations. Now for beginners and intermediate, you're simply going to destroy all the mobs together along with the Reaper and stay for the event, and then also kill all them till that ends. Best practice is to kill them on top of the portal spawn for the event because it also spawns combustion mobs that will explode and help you DPS the other mobs. You will periodically see bomber mobs coming with red AoEs on the ground. Be very mindful of these and make sure to stay outside the circle. Quick tip to make it as most advantageous as possible, make sure to stack your mobs on the bomb mob and then leave at the very last moment. This way you get in a little bit added DPS that, hey, you didn't have to work for. Now for the higher end of intermediate and advanced rotations, this changes slightly. Once you trigger an event from a Reaper spawn, you will then leave to go on to the next pack. You will do this for every single pack that you have in the rotation. The main reason why we were doing this is we're building up enough mobs to feed souls for the next Reaper spawn as you go around. You'll notice when you get back to your original pack that a new Reaper that you cannot hit will be spawned and you'll have a crap ton of mobs around. You'll have the event mobs and your original spawn mobs just sitting there waiting for you. That'd be hella souls to easily spawn them in for your next rotation. Destroy the dozens of mobs around the newly spawned Reaper and feed it all the souls you can. And now it is simply a repeated process. Whether he spawns or not, go to the next Reaper in the rotation. By being more geared and able to move faster through the rotation, we are able to perpetuate the Reaper spawns more consistently by having more mobs. Unfortunately, we can't do that with lesser gear because it would be more of a waste of time. Now, a little tidbit, as you're first starting out in advanced, you want to start with 4 to 5 packs initially. Even if you have 6 Reapers in your rotation, the chances are you will not need the 6th till you get an Elvia weapon. Speaking of Elvia weapon, when you get an Ogre or a Giga Chad spawn, nothing changes. Do the rotation as normal and defeat him as you do the Reaper packs. If you're worried about them despawning if you leave a certain part of the rotation, don't. I've tested it. I waited like a good 10 minutes and they didn't go nowhere without me touching them. When you get the weapon, you will simply grind faster and you'll be able to extend into the 1 or 2 more packs that you needed that are in your larger rotation. The chances of you outgrowing your 2 are very, very low unless you're hella geared near endgame cap. Another thing to look out for is Hex Marie herself will spawn as a area boss. Most of her animations are very telling with large red indicators on the ground, and do be careful not to step in them because she does a shit ton of damage. When you notice she is spawning, make sure to defeat all the mobs surrounding her to get her to spawning quickly. If she starts to spawn as you're leaving a pack, spawn her in and then leave just like you would a Reaper. By the time you circle back around the rotation, don't worry, she'll still be there. One thing to keep in mind is you can get a Hex spawn, a boss spawn, and you can trigger an event from a Reaper all at the same time. That can get really hectic and dangerous no matter what kind of gear you got, so do be very mindful. Now to summarize a bit, because that was quite a bit of an explanation. If you are beginner or intermediate, choose a rotation appropriate for you and do the mechanic in order to spawn a Soul Reaper, spawn the event, and then finish the event to move on. If you are advanced, you will do a rotation to spawn in the Reaper and then spawn the event, but then you will start rotating again to perpetuate the Reaper spawns. By the time you circle around, you will have enough mobs around with a new Reaper spawned in that you will be able to feed souls. This will allow you to have enough to destroy to feed the Reaper for souls to have them spawned in by the next time you come back. Then put it on repeat. Easy. When you do the events, no matter the gear, make sure to fight them on top of the portal to optimize blowing them up and using your bomber mobs to do more DPS. Make sure to keep moving though around in and out of the portal because if they surround you, you're probably going to get tapped. Most of the time when I see people die here, including myself, is when I'm hella piled up on mobs. Staying on the outside of the pack while being around the portal is optimal. And that is all for this advanced Elvia guide for Hex. There's quite a few ways that you can use different rotations in the area, and mechanics can be applied differently to make them optimized to your gear. You want to aim for 12k plus trash on a blue loot scroll and scale that up as you get more gear. The better and smoother you get at the mechanics, the more trash you'll get and the better drops you will have. And of course, also a good amount of RNG. Those who are pushing between 15 to 20k trash an hour are usually getting multiple bosses per hour with multiple weapons, so do keep that in mind. Also, depending on if your class is meta, how good your DPS is, and your personal rotation that you use can make a big difference. If you all find this video hella informational, or at least decently informational, and it helped you to grind at the place that is Hex, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It'll hella help me out, and I do appreciate it. Hope you all have a solid rest of your day, and good luck grinding the undead. See you all in the next one. Crimson out.